Hey everybody, it's me, CrystalMan2000, and welcome to Team Fortress Tuesdays. This week, gonna be playing as the Heavy with the Heolong Heatmaker, the Sandovich, and the Gloves of Running Urgently. And today I'm going to be talking about a genre of games that a lot of people praise and I really don't understand. RPGs. Now, I don't know if this is just me, but RPGs always kind of annoyed me the amount of popularity they get. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand why people like them and um some of the some things that they do right, but there's like a couple things in like every single RPG, whether it be turn-based or open world like Diablo, Skyrim, or like Pokemon or Final Fantasy, whatever. And there's this one problem that I just find like one reoccurring thing that goes through all of these games. And that's the amount of dedication they involve. The main problem that I have with every single one of these games is that every single one of them either requires you to invest a lot of time in the story of the game, or invest a lot of time understanding the game. Diablo and Pokemon, insanely complex games in my opinion, because A, I don't have as much dedication as other people who enjoy those games do. But the other thing is, take for example Final Fantasy, and yeah, but that's the only example I can think of. But the problem that I have with those games too is that their stories are like Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger. Their stories are super, super complex, and I don't know if it's just me, but these stories I just don't find enjoyable in any way. They're not fun, and for the most part, they're too complex to understand on a first playthrough. Second, I just don't think they provide enough of entertainment to. They just don't have enough entertainment for me to like keep invested in. Oh my gosh, what's gonna happen next in the story? And well, I'm just gonna like start splitting up into like the two different categories of JRPGs and WRPGs. The problem that I have with most JRPGs is one really, really reoccurring theme that irks me in every single one of these games, and that's the amount of weakness you have. In every single one of these games, it's like almost impossible to dodge attacks. Earthbound, Final Fantasy, Pokemon, and just have too much of a luck factor. Pokemon, too much luck on critical hits. There's only two RPG games like this that I can think of that don't annoy me. A, Paper Mario, because you have to take a risk when you're doing this, because since you have the counters, you can either do less damage or completely negate attacks. Because of this, you have to. It's actually down to your skill and how confident you feel, and not, oh, I have to use this because I know my health isn't going to survive for that long. And the other game is another Mario RPG, the Mario and Luigi series. Now, every single one of these games has one thing that I absolutely love about every single one of them, and that's the amount of involvement that you have in it. So, you can dodge attacks by tapping the A and B button, or holding the A and B button to release your hammer attack. Or if you're playing or if you're playing Partners in Time when you have the babies, it requires a lot of skill and concentration to be able to execute those great attacks. And the one consistent thing that I see in both of these games is the amount of luck that is not involved. These are both like some of my favorite RPGs of all time, being Mario and Luigi and Paper Mario. But like I said, it's just weird that these games have a lot less luck in them than like most RPGs, and their stories aren't insanely complex, and I love these games for it. And one person who does appreciate these things I know, Fawful's Minions. Anyone who's seen his video game elitist countdown know that I'm describing it for the exact same reason. It involves a lot more on skill and a lot less on luck. Now, that's the main problem that I have with the JRPGs. It's just that it doesn't feel like fair. It just feels like you have almost no control over what moves they do, which party member they attack, etc. and etc. And now we're going to be moving on to the WRPGs like Diablo, Skyrim, maybe the other games, but there's one thing that I see so reoccurring in every single one of these games, and that's the overworld. Now, don't get me wrong, overworlds can be very, very fun. They can be cool to play through, and they can look beautiful and have so much stuff. And in the case of Diablo, since it's randomly generated, you can even have a little bit of fun exploring on each one of your different playthroughs. But the one problem that I have is that thing. The worlds are so gigantic, and sometimes they can even feel bland, like Skyrim's or Diablo's world. They just don't have enough content inside of them to keep me invested. I can't even think of one example of this type that I can actually say was good in these games. And that even transfers over to the JRPG versions. You have the games like what's the game? Xenoblade Chronicles, where these games are praised for having like some of the most expansive and cool open world games ever. And even though I can admit that they are cool and beautiful, they just have too much content in them for you to actually enjoy. And that leads back into like my Paper Mario and Luigi rant. These worlds aren't too complicated. They're always just one line. There's no backtracking at all. And when there is backtracking, it's optional. Not in the case of like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy. In the Paper Mario series, you almost never need to backtrack, but it's absolutely fun to because of the amount of rewards you get for it. And that's the main problem I see with most RPGs these days. The amount of backtracking just doesn't feel rewarding enough for me. I mean, there are a couple, like I said, there are a couple games that I do enjoy the backtracking on because of how rewarding they are. Like, Paper Mario, I can think of like a couple examples where you have to actually go back because you don't have a party member or something. But when you do go back, you can get like these really, really cool prizes. One example is the badge in Merlin's house, like where you have to do the 3 ground pounds over and over again. It's so creative and well hidden, but it never felt unfair or out of place, or I didn't have any enjoyment with it. But that's basically my main complaint about RPGs. They just, no matter which type they are, they just have too much content and too much luck based in them for me to actually enjoy. And the last thing I want to say is the amount of time invested you have to put into every single one of these games is just too much, and I personally just can't. I just don't personally think it's worth the amount of time to spend all of these things grinding and leveling up things. But that's my little rant. Thank you guys so much for watching, and that'll do it for this episode. See you guys next week.